under the aegis of the City of Chicago's Commission on Human Relations, Advisory Council on Veterans Affairs, and the Chicago chapter of the American Veterans for Equal Rights, AVER. We will begin our salute with the posting of the colors by Ed Wosilas. This will be followed by a rendition of the National Anthem by Dean Ogren, the Pledge of Allegiance, and a moment of silence. All who are able, please stand for the posting of colors and remain standing.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us have a moment of silence in memory of all American veterans who have gone on before us, and especially for LGBT veterans, many of whom had to serve in silence about their personal lives. Today, we especially remember the 49 lives taken in Orlando on 12 June. Thank you. Please be seated. And thank you, Dean, for the beautiful renditions of our national anthem. Our current president and co-founder of the Chicago chapter of the American Veterans for Equal Rights, AVER, is James Darby, who served in the U.S. Navy during the Korean conflict. Jim has also served as recording secretary of the city's Advisory Council on Veterans Affairs. Jim Darby.
Thank you very much. And just in case you don't know who we are the American Veterans for Equal Rights. We were founded in 1990 by Sergeant Miriam Ben Shalom, who was kicked out of the military twice for being gay. She is the one who organized the national LGBT veterans groups across this country. And she is our hero. Speaking of heroes, I also wanted to mention that of the 49 people that were killed in Orlando, some were veterans, and we know their names. Angel Candelario Padro, a veteran and former specialist with the Puerto Rican Army National Guard, and Antonio Devon Brown, U.S. Army Active Reserve. We lost 2 veterans on that day. I would like to introduce the people who are on the stage. Larry Simpson, U.S. Army National Guard, former secretary. Stan Jetzik, U.S. Navy, board member. Heather Yang, U.S. Army, Bosnia and Iraq. Dean Ogren, our wonderful Pavarotti. And Bruce Inman, U.S. Coast Guard, visiting from Florida. And Tanya Fries, one of our coordinators from the Road Home. Oh, I'm sorry, Navy veteran. Oh! And Mona Noriega, the commissioner for the Commission on Human Relations for the City of Chicago. And Tim Zylstra, who is our treasurer, U.S. Army. Oh, I'm sorry. JROTC, and also Ed Wazilos, who posted the colors. Ed is U.S. Air Force. Now I would like to introduce Mona Noriega from the Mayor's Office.
Well, it's a great day to be here, especially after such a wonderful Pride celebration. We kicked off Pride by commemorating and honoring those lives lost in Orlando, Florida. And I also want to say thank you to the first responders who went in danger. And actually those first responders were community friends, military, emergency service providers. We owe all of them a gratitude. I'm going to read the mayor's proclamation. He can't be here today. Whereas throughout the history of America, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Americans of diverse yet convergent backgrounds have fearlessly defended the principles of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of these United States through their service in the United States Armed Forces side by side with their heterosexual counterparts. And whereas generally recognized as a catalyst for the modern gay civil rights movement, the Stonewall Uprising of 1969 sparked unified resistance to the widespread injustices faced by all in our greater LGBT community, leading to a resurgence of political, economic, and community activism to gain basic rights. And whereas in 1990, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender veterans formed a mutually beneficial organization now called American Veterans for Equal Rights, AVER, for the purpose of recognizing and appreciating their distinguished military service. And whereas the Chicago chapter of AVER has remained steadfast in supporting and assisting lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender veterans in the Chicagoland area for way over 20 years. And whereas while making history day in and day out, American Veterans for Equal Rights has also witnessed extraordinary cultural shifts, the rolling out of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell Repeal Act of 2010, allowing LGBT-identified citizens to serve openly and proudly in the United States Armed Forces. And whereas the members of the Chicago chapter of AVER persist in their tireless work toward a more perfect union, affirming to all they continue to selflessly give of their time, resources, and expertise to improve the lives of all veterans. Now, therefore, I, Rahm Emanuel, Mayor of the City of Chicago, do hereby proclaim June 30th to be Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Veterans of America Day in Chicago, and encourage all Chicagoans to acknowledge and salute these outstanding veterans for their brave sacrifice and unwavering dedication to our country and ongoing contributions to the City of Chicago. Dated today, June 23rd, 2016. Many thanks.
And now I would like to introduce one of our members, Heather Yang.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. As Jim said, my name is Heather Yang. I am a U.S. Army combat veteran, and I served for 9 years with the 105th Military Police Company. Not only am I a member of American Veterans for Equal Rights, I am also a proud member of Alpha Gamma Xi Military Sorority Incorporated. This year, AVER is celebrating the Year of the Woman Veteran, and today I want to share with you a little glimpse into my experience as a woman soldier. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, where I joined the military in 1996 under the Delayed Entry Program. Basically what that means is that I was only 17 when I enlisted, so my parents also had to sign my enlistment papers. I attended basic training in January of 1998 at Fort McClellan in Alabama, and I will never forget my first day of basic training. All of us sitting in silence, packed into a bus with these huge duffel bags on the front of us. We were all nervous, excited, and scared. The bus came to a stop, and a man in a wide-brimmed hat stepped on. As you can see, I'm pretty short, and I could just barely see over the top of my duffel bag, but I could see that hat, and I could hear that voice. I was trying my hardest to pay attention to what he was saying, and this one line, said in a soothing Southern accent, I will remember forever. "I'm your senior drill sergeant," he said, "and on behalf of Captain Owen and First Sergeant Pitts, welcome to Fort McClellan." There was a pause for the dramatics, and then the loudest, scariest voice I had ever heard boomed, "Now get off my bus." I spent 16 weeks at Fort McClellan, completing basic training and then moving on to advanced individual training, where I learned everything I needed to know about my MOS, military police. After graduating, I returned back to New York and to the 105th MP Company, where I was assigned to 1st Platoon, also known as Paytay's Pirates. When I was told that, I thought there must have been some kind of mistake, because it was a well-known fact that there were no females in 1st Platoon. All the females were either in headquarters, 2nd, or 4th Platoon. I showed up for that first formation, and I was met with more than a few side eyes and judgmental looks. This was the first time a woman was standing in these ranks, and I knew I would have a lot to prove. It was 7 years before another female joined my platoon. In 1999, my company was deployed to Bosnia for peacekeeping missions. Our company was split between 3 base camps, and only 2 of the 3 squads from 1st were going to be going to Camp Doble. Instead of keeping our current teams and squads together, the 2 squads that were going to be sent to Doble were handpicked. The varsity team, they called it. Surprising to even me, I was picked and sent to Doble, where I was one of 4 females on the entire base camp. That was a surreal experience for me. Every soldier on that camp knew my name. I spent a year in Bosnia, where I turned 21, rang in the year 2000 at a British base camp, signed up for and ran my first and only 15-mile race. My main reason for doing that race was because they offered me a free spaghetti dinner. I earned 2 Army Achievement Medals, and I got to visit Budapest. That is one thing I can say about my time in the military. I sure did see the world. On September 11, 2001, my company was sent to New York City. We arrived just hours after the towers had come down, and it's almost impossible to describe the sights, sounds, and smells from that month that I spent there. We worked alongside FEMA, and it was beyond emotionally draining. The one bright spot in that time that we spent there was how much we all bonded, supported, and uplifted one another. The Bomb First Platoon by this point was strong and would help us get us through the hardest deployment we were about to face. On Valentine's Day in 2003, the 105th deployed to Iraq. where we stayed for 18 months. I was 24 years old when we left. During our deployment, we lost 2 members of our company, my friends Sergeant Heath McMillan and Specialist Mikey Williams. Both were killed in action by improvised explosive devices. My squad, platoon, and company were attacked more times than I care to remember, but one particular attack I don't think I will ever be able to forget, and I would like to share a condensed version of that night with you all. My squad, 3rd Squad, was scheduled to work Relay Point 1, which was on top of a sandy hill about halfway between our base camp, Kalsu, and Baghdad. When it was your turn in the rotation to work the relays, you were up there for 3 days. The best way to explain what a relay point is to think of it as a huge game of telephone, relaying messages from one point to another. I had a bad feeling about going to the relay that day, and I couldn't pinpoint why. I just knew something felt off, and I would tell anyone who was willing to listen. Most of the guys in my squad, there was 10 of us total, just kept blowing me off and saying, "Oh, you're just in a bad mood," or just ignored me altogether. My gunner, however, and still to this day one of my very best friends, Eric Ando, kept reassuring me that everything was going to be fine and there was nothing to worry about. We got up to the relay site, did change over with 2nd Squad, and started getting settled in. By this time, the sun was already starting to set. My squad leader was figuring out shifts, and everyone was giving me my space. A cot was set up behind one of the Humvees, and I sat down and put my headphones on. The first few bars of Radiohead's Karma Police flooded my ears when I heard a noise that I have now come to dread and fear. I ripped my headphones off and heard everyone yelling at me, "Get in the bunker!" Without question, I grabbed my Kevlar and made the mad dash to our poor excuse of a bunker, which we built into the hilltop. Plywood, sandbags, plywood, and more sandbags. I'm still unsure whose hand it was, but a hand stretched out and grabbed my vest, pulling me into the bunker just as the first mortar hit the hill. We were all silent for a few minutes, all 10 of us crammed into this small bunker. I was sitting cross-legged across from Ando, and even in the dim light, I could make out his face. Mortar after mortar hit the top, side, and base of the hill. I remember thinking to myself, is this what an earthquake feels like? The squad took a second to regroup, and we headed back out to fight. Before we got up and out of the bunker, I looked at Ando. Our faces were so close together, I can still remember how his breath felt on my face, and I said to him, "I don't want to die here, not like this." He grabbed me by the shoulders, looked me in the eyes, and said, "I promise you, we're not going to die, not tonight." When I stepped out of the bunker, it was almost like I stepped into a movie. Tracer rounds were screaming through the air, and our squad leader was yelling out orders while firing his weapon from the turret of the Humvee. It was like everything was happening in slow motion. By this point in my military career, I had been firing weapons for years, and nothing could have prepared me for how loud it was on top of that hill. It took me a few seconds to realize that no one was on the radio calling back or reporting what was going on. So I jumped on the radio, and in the calmest voice I could muster, I called back to camp with a situation report. 2nd Squad was just about to pull back into our base camp when my voice came over the radio. My lieutenant leader told me that his heart sank when he heard my voice over the sounds of gunfire and explosions. Thankfully, their platoon from our company was currently on patrol about 10 minutes from our location. Waiting for them to arrive was the longest 10 minutes of my life. I never left my post in spite of the constant mortars and gunfire, ensuring that we stayed in communication with our higher-ups, relaying everything that was going on. Just as 3rd Platoon was radioing back to me that they were at the base of the hill, I heard that unmistakable thud of another mortar being launched, and it was close. The sound of a mortar being launched and exploded sounds a lot like fireworks. I looked up at Lou Cardona, the gunner in the truck with the radio I was using, and we locked eyes. There was really nothing we could do at that point but to duck down and cross our fingers. Luck was on our side, and the mortar hit the base of the hill. We were outnumbered, and the small arms fires and mortars showed no signs of stopping. With 3rd Platoon now racing through the narrow dirt paths all around the relay site, we were like sitting ducks. So the decision to leave the hill was made. We rallied and started to pull everything in to evacuate. Everyone went to start their Humvees, and Charlie Team's battery was completely dead. Panic started to set in for that team, and I did the only thing I could think of. I jumped out of my truck, and I grabbed the military version of jumper cables, hooked them up to my truck, ran to the dead truck to connect them. I yelled to my gunner to start the truck and rev the engine, and I was never so happy to hear that other Humvee start in my entire life.
Go ahead.
I unhooked the cables just as two more thuds were heard, and I jumped back into my driver's seat. As I shut the door, the mortars hit the hillside, and we took off with everyone from my squad safely in tow. We regrouped at an overpass about half a mile down the road, and We regrouped at an overpass about half a mile down the road from the relay site to do a sensitive items and equipment check. It was at that moment I realized how terrified I really was, and I leaned back against the truck. Everyone around me was talking, and I couldn't really make out what they were saying. My head was ringing, my heart was pounding, and everything just sounded funny. The one thing I did remember, we didn't have to return to the relay site that night.
Go ahead.
When we got back to base camp and after a debrief, the members of Charlie team came over to talk to me. Some of the guys in that team always had doubts about me, if I could really handle being in combat as a woman. So when they thanked me and hugged me for getting them off that hill, I knew I had changed their minds and that I would never be doubted again. For my actions that night, I was awarded the Army Commendation Medal with Valor. The Army Commendation Medal, or ARCOM, is awarded to any member of the Armed Forces of the United States who, while serving in any capacity with the Army, distinguishes himself or herself by heroism, meritorious service, or achievement. In 2005, I officially ended my time in service, and after graduating from Buffalo State College with my BA in Communications, I moved to Chicago to start my next chapter in my adventure. The 9 years I spent in the military and the people I served with definitely helped me become the strong, proud, and confident woman that I am today.
Go ahead, girl. Go ahead. You did it. You did it. You healed.
I am proud of the things I accomplished in the service, even though it did come with its downfalls. I suffer with anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder. And that is something I will carry with me for the rest of my life.
Go ahead, baby. Go ahead. Let it out.
A few years ago, there would have been no way I could stand up here today and talk about this with you all.
Not without you here. You made it, baby.
But every time I am able to share my story and to let other service members know that they are not alone, it gets easier and it makes it all worth it. I would like to thank my friends and family,
Go ahead, baby.
my military family, Afghan Mazai, AVER, and anyone out there who serves our country and supports our veterans. Thank you for listening to a small part of my story this afternoon.
Baby, that's the beautiful story I've ever heard in my life. You did it, girl. Go ahead, you made it. Come on now. All these veterans up here, all these veterans, did a great job. Stand for our country. And we ain't discriminating on nobody, but we just stand for what we got to stand for. You did it, baby. That's a beautiful. She did it.
We have a special guest, Lieutenant Shachar,
Oh, thank you so much.
From-
I'm so sorry.
from Israel. Unfortunately, because of security reasons, he can't come up here. So we are going to have to, we will introduce you to him, but we're going to have to forego that. And Travis is unable to attend, and in his place, Dean Ogren has graciously volunteered with a little arm twisting to do America Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty, above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shore.
you very much. That is always part of our program. There are a lot of people who do not know who wrote America the Beautiful. It was Kathy Lee Bates, and she was traveling across country on a train to get a job in Colorado, and all of those words came to her, and she wrote the song to an old church hymn, and she was a gay woman, so we considered it our song.
Be what you want to be, just be good. Just be good at what you do.
She wrote the song. And now, if everyone will join us, we are going to retrieve the flags and walk across the front of the stage and over to the eternal flame and have our wreath flame.
Before we do that, I'm gonna sing a tune.
Turn it around. Turn the wreath around. And if everybody will join us after the color guard goes by with the flag, we will go over to the eternal flame and place the wreath. And then after the wreath, we have Susan Jones and Melissa Terrell, who will perform echo taps for us. Thank you all for attending.
All right, bro. I got something for you to pray for. All right. See what America do for us. Let's do it.
See you guys later. I'm gonna go back. Let me know if I'm
Of the United States of America and the Republic which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's a good look on you.
Got every flag for our country. We fought hard in American way. I love America. It's the best American church. Don't worry about it.
Sawyer, I married the very hieroglyphic and all right. This is our basic side.